Welcome to Kahanis Golden Bytes. So, in this series, I carry on with covering finance topics, terms, concepts for people who don't have a background of finance. Okay, trying to make it as simple as possible. So, what are we going to cover today? Emergency fund. Now, why? As the word suggests, emergency. There are going to be plenty of unexpected situations. They will come unannounced. It could be due to various reasons, and it's probably not possible to even list them down. But some of the common things: job changes, job losses, becoming more of a reality. Disruptions are happening. Each industry is going through a churn, and new industries are coming up. So all of that and much more. All of that means that situations could suddenly change without warning. Earlier, we may have had a little more time, but now a little lesser. Medical emergencies now, assets. I've also put down things like asset purchases. You know, Usually one plans a lot before going for an asset. For example, a real estate or whatever it is. But sometimes you just get a good deal, and hence you may think of not letting that deal pass. Okay, so you may need funds at quick notice. So that's why, for a positive reason too, you may need it, not just for a challenging time. So there are plenty of reasons that you might need. It'll never come with an invitation card, never ever. So please be prepared. It's going to surprise you. It's going to surprise you. So best to be prepared. Now, one of the first things that you need to do is really tracking of your monthly expenses. Now, regular monthly expenses you'll keep. Now, you'll also find that you know by the end of the year, you've got the full year's expenses. You'll find that some months you have some exceptional situations. you know Insurance premium, fees, a celebration, weddings in the family. You may be in that phase of life where a lot of weddings are happening in that, around that time. So in within your family circle, these reasons are various. So what you'll find is, while your monthly average you come to know by the end of the year, but some months will be spikes. So by tracking it, you come to know whether it was an exception or these particular months you do have a spike. So it keeps you better prepared. And as I've shared earlier also in some of my other clips, if you don't keep a track of your monthly expense, you will always be falling short when it comes to money and finances. So you must make every effort. Otherwise, what will happen is typically पैसे आ जाते हैं, कहाँ चले जाते हैं मुझे पता ही नहीं चलता. That's a sad situation to be in, but you will come to know. But only if you track it. So the first part is tracking. The future, yes, medical insurance will become more and more important, but here's the liquidity test. You must have, some magazines and some financial papers will tell you, you must have 3 months of expenses that can be met, that kind of money as emergency fund. Some have started talking about 6 months, but I've been propagating since a few years that you should have up to 3 years. Now, you can question, is that too conservative? Is that being very pessimistic? But here's the reason. Let me try and explain that. This is an emergency. Now, emergency can be of any kind. It can be medical. It can be anything that can happen. I hope it never happens, but it does happen. With varying degrees. If you have for 3 years, what happens is you have that comfort that you don't need to panic. That becomes very, very important. Now, there is obviously something called the liquidity test. Now, what is the liquidity test? Now, if I were to say, if somebody were to say that I have real estate, don't worry, I'm very comfortable. Now, here's the question: are you in the business of real estate, which means that you keep buying and selling real estate? खरीदते रहते हो, कई प्लॉट हैं यहाँ पे, कोई घर है, बेचते रहते हो. So if that is your business, then yes, you're used to buying and selling, and you know how much time it takes to sell a property, because it takes much longer than other assets, okay, which are more liquid. However, if it is not, and if you have an emotional attachment to that house, to that real estate, it could be anything. It could be your father's, given it to you. It could be your own house, and you might say that, uh, I have too much of emotional attachment to the पहला घर था, सब कुछ लगा है इस घर में. I will not be, I won't sell it. So, so there's a lot of attachment. Maybe your in-laws have given it to you, whatever be it. It could be any reason. But, will you, is the attachment stronger? Then it becomes very different. I recall years ago, reading in a magazine, actually decades ago, when a very famous a journalist had interviewed a very famous industrialist who had a property worth several, in today's terms, 100 crores in a prime area in the country. And somehow, as part of the interview, this topic came up, and you know what he said? My asset is worth, my real estate, the prime address is worth zero. And obviously, the question, was, the journalist started laughing. How can you say it's zero? It's worth so much. And the journalist and the industrialist said, you know why it's worth zero? Because I do not plan to ever sell it. If I'm not going to sell it, yes, it's an asset. But if I'm not going to sell it, it's worth zero for me. So that it's just a perspective. So if it's a prime area that you have, also there's some people who look at it that way. Now the difference is, can you or will you? बेच सकता हूँ, क्या मैं बेचूंगा? They're two different things. It's a mindset, and that will define whether you can sell your real estate or not. I'm just talking about real estate. There are many assets. So this is more in terms of liquidity. I've heard some people say, you know, I have money in the PF, so that's not a problem. I can always take it out. So here's the question: do the PF rules allow you to just take out money whenever you feel like, or there are certain conditions? If that condition can be applied every time, then it is liquid. But if it is not, and which I don't think it is, you just cannot take it out anytime. Yes, it is your set. It adds to your net worth. One fine day, it will be your money. It is going to add to your kitty. But can it be taken out for an emergency? Probably not. So, what am I trying to make you do here is think. Think very carefully and clearly if it's liquid enough, which means your fixed deposits, your savings. You may have something in stocks, bonds, etc., which you can take out like this in case of an emergency. You don't need to have it, in a few days. You should be able to, some probably immediately, but within a few days or a week, you should be able to take out 3 months to 3 years. Now, choice is yours. How much you want to keep? Every 1 to 3 years, you should review your emergency fund. Why? A lot of things happen over the course of a period. You may get a promotion. You may move to a new city. A promotion or a new city might just mean a different standard of living. You may have bought a new house. So many things may have changed. You may have, things may have become more expensive. You started to spend a lot more. So hence, if you think that my monthly average was X, but with this new situation with changed circumstances, if you haven't calculated your monthly average as X plus whatever, then you're not keeping the right amount as you have in your mind. You're just thinking you have it. So you must be very sure how much you have by reviewing this every 1 to 3 months. Now, if even if there's no change that happens, there's inflation that happens every year on an average. There's an 8% inflation that happens. In terms of calculation, that's also something that is used. Now, yes, what is inflation? Very simply put, not everything is going to go up one day, but every year on an average 8% expenses. So even if everything is maintained the way you are, you had a bike and you still have a bike, or you had a certain car, you still keep that car, you have a mid-range car or expensive car, whatever it is, there's an inflation cost that comes up. So hence you need to readjust your monthly average. Your monthly average would automatically have been pushed up with the similar expenses. What do you do then? You then readjust. Once again, you go through the liquidity test. Once again, it's very critical. Your new status, your new changes, your new home, your new situation. Maybe your children have got married, or maybe you have got married. It could be anybody, any situation. It could be a child in the family, or the child has started going to school, or the child has started going to college. It could be any situation. So you have to then adjust for this. Why is it important? So that you feel more secure. You see, you may be in a situation where other people are dependent on you. Maybe your wife, maybe your children, maybe your parents, maybe your siblings. You know your situation better. And please don't think that I have this one friend or two friend, unke paas chale jaunga. Usually it's good to think and have that feeling, and maybe they'll be able to help you. But most times what happens is you cannot imagine what the other person could be going through at that stage. So it's better to be prepared, not have panic. Let your family have confidence in you, saying that nothing to worry about. Even if, for example, I hope it never happens, even if there's a job loss, you have sufficient time. Yes, I have time. I can look for a job. I can think. I don't need to panic. I don't need to get into a worse situation than I am right now by creating, throwing money somewhere or doing something else incorrectly, starting a business that you didn't know enough about. All that happens when you panic. Lack of money could create stress. So that's something that can be avoided. I don't want any of you all to be forced to go and borrow money from which will create an embarrassment for you or for anybody else. Rather not, right? And yes, if you ever take out money from your emergency fund for whatever emergency, please replace that, rebuild it as quickly as you can, because that's an emergency fund that has to stay with you till the end of your life. As long as you live, you must have that emergency fund with you, because the nature of emergencies will change, but you need to be better prepared for that. Better prepared for that. You know, so always replace that money that is taken out. And I just need to tell you, one more thing, that if out of all the funds that I speak about in my other clips, etc., the most important fund is the emergency fund. Yes, you need to save money for the retirement fund, etc., etc., and grow your investments into other goals that you have. But the most critical is emergency fund. That's the first thing you must start collecting money for. Only after that do you start to build your nest for another goal. That's very, very important. First is emergency fund. And like I always say, please ask yourself, did what you heard just now, a short while ago in this clip, did something trigger within your mind? Was it something that got you thinking? Do you think this was informative? Do you think it was, you can benefit from this at some stage or the other? Your friend, your sibling, someone, if they take a look at what was in this clip, would they benefit today, tomorrow, or later? Anytime. If that be the case, please go ahead, please share this video, this clip, subscribe to my channel, and you'll find various other clips that I've made. And if there's anything that you'd like me to cover which I haven't yet, and if there's sufficient demand for it, I will definitely cover it. Just put it in the comments column so that I can take a look and read, and then create it if I'm not already working on it. Okay. And with that, for staying with me, for staying so far, thank you very much. I wish you all the best. I wish you success. I wish you plenty of wealth. I wish you plenty of happiness.